That raises the question about what happens next in Iran. And you mentioned the president last night said that there's more economic pressure coming on Iran. I know you're heavily involved in this and executing this. What can we expect here?
Yeah, you're going to expect, I'll be holding a press conference on Monday to talk about exactly what we're going to do. And again, we have asymmetric information, and I'm not sure why oil has popped up on this, because this, for now, and it is at the president's discretion, if we are doing the maximum economic pressure, then that means that likely there will not be a large-scale kinetic restart. But I would emphasize that is for now. And look, we do have control of the strait. You would have seen media reports that large amounts of energy are getting out. And I think that we can continue doing that in the southern lane. And that, I think oil markets are misinterpreting what this economic pressure means. The economic pressure means that we are going to all of our allies, and this is going to be the greatest coordinated economic isolation in the history of the world, and we are going to them and saying, you are either with us or against us. You want this murderous regime to end, and if you insist on doing business with them, either transferring money, buying their oil, doing seaborne ship transfers, then the U.S. Treasury and the U.S. government, they will put its full might and force toward enforcing against you. So it is time for our allies and the rest of the world to make a decision, and we are going to squash the economy of this murderous regime, which that will curtail their ability to project power through their proxies. It will mean that they cannot pay the military, and we have substantial inflation, both food inflation and ordinary inflation in Iran. And what we have seen, I see lots of reports that said, oh, well, this has never worked. It does work, because we have a combination. It is a 1-2 punch. We have the blockade, and we are going to have the toughest sanctions in history. And I will tell you, this will work. It worked in Venezuela once we put up the blockade. It is working in Cuba right now, and it is going to work in Iran, and we are going to collapse this regime.
It is Thursday, 20 August in the year of our Lord 2026. Right there, you got to go pretty far in the woods to hit the tripwire of Scott Bessent, having known Scott for many, many, many years. This is full-scale economic war. He said right there, put a note in your diary that on Monday he's going to give a full press conference and be able to back up exactly what he's going to do. But he is now warlord in chief. The Department of War has really shifted over to the Treasury Department. Scott said right there, we will not have a restart of major kinetic operations as we shift into economic war. It's going to be a combination of sanctions and blockade. The blockade is that oil, that 10 million barrels of oil is going a day. That is only for our quote unquote allies. That's from Saudi, UAE, Kuwait, and others. There's no Iranian oil going out. It's not going to exit. Plus, when he says sanctions, not just screwing down on the Persian regime, but secondary sanctions. And this goes to the Europeans, people who are trading with them, the Chinese Communist Party, the Russians, and particularly, as he mentioned, banks. And we have to understand that our quote-unquote allies, that we're letting their oil out because our blockade is letting it out, particularly in Dubai, that's the money laundering center. This is how the regime gets cash. They get it through these banks in Dubai. Why? The Muslims are on their, I realize it's Persian versus Arab, it's Persian versus Jew, it's Persian versus the Turks, it's all of it. Persian versus the Arabs in Egypt, all of it. But at the end of the day, they will always side with themselves over us. So the backhanded way that they're financing this Dubai, Scott Bessent's going to stop. Pretty historic. And we'll see more on Monday. Of course, we're going to address this as we've advocated for full economic war. Bring them to their knees. Let's get the kinetic part out. Let's get our troops out of harm's way. Of course, the Iranians have said, oh, we're going to counter this. Well, let's see. Let's see, tough guys, what you're going to do. Scott Bessent, and there's going to be a press conference on Monday to go in more detail. I'm sure we'll get more details actually out to us between now and then. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to break down Scott's actual interview on CNBC. We're going to go to the most important parts that you need to know about this emergency that's leading to, hopefully, he takes care of the emergency to avoid the crisis, which is his theory of the case. But right afterwards, Scott gave a brief gaggle to reporters. So let's go ahead and play that.
We are trying to bring the market back into equilibrium in a thinly traded market. I think I'm confident that bonds will continue declining. We've got a spike in oil prices today that I don't really understand. Our announcement is for economic action, and I think that the economic action will mean that oil prices will come down sooner.
Secretary, yeah, if you could answer, facing the cameras, but for the $40 trillion mark that we passed for the national debt, would you comment on that, and how do we reverse that?
Yeah, look, the 40 trillion is a big number. It is smaller when we look at the publicly traded amount because our Social Security funds and other government entities hold a substantial amount. And what we're going to do, we're going to have to grow our way out of this. And as I talked about at G20 in Asheville, we are going to talk about the U.S. growth strategy and encourage the rest of the world to come along with us. We are also, I announced that Director Russ, Vought, and I have been tasked with looking at fiscal consolidation. I think the numbers are not the actual numbers now. We've had to do substantial tariff refunds due to the court ruling, but with the Section 301 tariffs, I am confident that we will be back to the same level, if not higher, of tariff income for last year, and that is most of the increase in the deficit. And remember, we did not get here in a day. That we were left with a mess. The Biden administration had the highest deficit to GDP in history when we weren't at war or weren't in a recession. For 2025, we brought it down by more than 1%.
Secretary, Neil McCabe.
Mr. Secretary, Target received a $1 billion refund for tariffs. What does that say about the size, besides the fact that it was done so quickly and efficiently, the refund, but what does it say about the amount of Chinese-made goods and foreign-made goods that our retailers are still selling in the United States?
Yeah, well, what it says is that the Democratic attorney generals who filed a ridiculous lawsuit against this administration wanted the money to go back to the payer of record. So that is corporate welfare. The American people had that money. And if I hear another Democratic legislator make the inane remark, the American people should get the money, the American people had the money in the U.S. Treasury, and we were forced to give it back. But using the 301s, which have survived more than 5,000 suits, that we will get that tariff income back. But what you are seeing is that we don't know the discount that Target got from the Chinese suppliers. So, this is a corporate bonanza, which I said it would be at the time.
Secretary, real quickly, your message to Iran, sir. Message to Iran, sir.
Okay, that was the rain caused that. I think you see the interest in talking to Scott Bessent right now. And Scott Bessent, some of the best news we heard there is under fiscal consolidation. It's going to be Russ, Vought, and Scott Bessent, two contributors here to the War Room, two of the best people we have in the government. So now you're getting the kind of steady eddies involved in this because guess what? This is Bessent's theory of the case always. Embrace an emergency, get ahead of an emergency to avoid a crisis. Get ahead of an emergency and don't let it metastasize into a crisis. And that's what you're seeing here. What he did in Japan, let's take it in order. What he did with the UAE a couple of months ago this is about intervention, giving them a swap line so they had liquidity to avoid them dumping petrodollars or dumping U.S. securities. Also the same with Japan that has $1.2 trillion of government securities. He's got to make sure that people don't dump those U.S. Treasuries, and he's still got enough demand. He can generate demand for the massive refinancings we have, given, as he said, Biden had it as the highest percent deficit to GDP in any time there was not a war or a major recession. So they inherited this and inherited all the mess from the pandemic. That's what he's trying to get ahead of. It's all going to be very tough. Thank God we got Scott and Russ that are working on this. You can see the intensity. That happened right after Scott did the CNBC interview. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to break that down a little bit. Let's go ahead and play. This is going to take us to right before break. I'll come back, but I want to play a bunch of this, and I'll give commentary on it. Let's go ahead and give from the start, I guess the start of the interview this morning. Let's go ahead and play it. Scott Bessent. I'll come in for needed observations and commentary. Let's go ahead and let it rip.
Scott Bessent. Secretary Bessent, welcome back. It's good to see you.
Sarah, good morning. Good to see you.
So talk us through what you were trying to do here by announcing the increased size of the buybacks.
Yeah, we're trying to signal that we think that this is a thinly traded area of the market, that we're in August, and there's been a lot of corporate issuance that's influenced the market, and we believe that there are many underlying factors that the market is not looking at, and we are going to make a market in these. We routinely do buybacks, and we're going to increase the size of the buyback. And Sarah, I would note that it could be more than the $4 billion per issue.
Yeah, I was going to ask how big this could get. If the signal here is that you're not happy with the direction of yields, they've gone back the other way. We've erased most of the Treasury rally that you got yesterday with that big surprise. So how much more are you willing to do?
Well, again, we have a big toolkit, so we'll see. And part of it is signaling here and to show that we believe that the yields don't reflect the underlying fundamentals. This Iran conflict, we will get on the other side of this. We don't know when, and we can talk about the economic measures we're going to be taking against Iran in a minute.
Sure.
We believe that the liquidity, especially in the 30-year point, is very poor, and we are in the administration. We are announcing probably at the end of this week, beginning of next week, an increased focus on fiscal consolidation, and it's coming from President Trump. Russ, Vought, and myself will be examining both on the revenue side and the cost side what we can do.
Yeah, because that's where I was going to go, and where a lot of the analysis is focused, as you know, Mr. Secretary, which is strong signal from the administration on the buybacks, but the fundamentals are ultimately what is going to prevail here in the bond market, and the fundamentals are hard to ignore when it comes to the size of our debt, with public debt increasing to now $40 trillion.
Yeah, I mean, look, Sarah, there's nothing magic about the 40 trillion number, and we can grow our way out of that. So, but what we do want to signal is I think that there's been a lot of misinformation in terms of what's going on with the deficit, what's going on with the deficit to GDP. We actually had a fiscal consolidation for the calendar year 2025.
Hang on. I want to get back to that. So just hit that. I want to start at that fiscal consolidation. Fiscal consolidation on both revenue and spending. Hello. Finally, Russ, Vought, and Scott Bessent are going to be in charge, and now we need to take dramatic action. Dramatic action can be taken, and you got two brothers that will take it. Vought and Bessent are what I call, they're guys that are no brag, just fact. So you couldn't have two better. But now is the time for action, action, action with a sense of urgency. That's what the signal was from Scott Bessent. Birch Gold, now more than ever. Take your phone out. Text Bannon, Bannon, at 989898. You get access to the guide of investing in gold and precious metals in the age of Trump. More importantly, it gives you direct access to Philip Patrick and his team. Now more than ever, you need to talk to them. Because in times of financial turbulence, for 3,000 years of man's recorded history, gold has been the hedge, has been the safe harbor of stability. Ask the central banks in the world why they're buying it. with both hands. Short break.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we got a new term. Because remember, you're ahead of the curve. Why? Because you're the leaders of the MAGA movement. You're the grassroots leaders of this magnificent populist nationalist revolution. How many times have we talked about economic warfare on the show? I don't know. Since the first day they went in. What are they doing now? In Tel Aviv, Levin and this crowd not going to be happy. We got to go bomb. We got to have a draft. We got to go bomb. Tel Aviv, sit down and shut up. Scott Bessent's in charge now, and let's let him have some runway to play this thing out. So sick of the Israel First crowd that got us into this jam. But guess what? Scott Bessent and the team are going to get us out. President Trump's already totally obliterated the nuclear program, so they can't have a nuclear weapon. And after you do the financial steps that Scott Bessent is going to take, there's not going to be anything left for them to restart any nuclear program. Full stop. Underline. Okay, here's the new term. I kind of dig it. Fiscal consolidation. Fiscal consolidation. Put on top of that what you heard this morning, financial repression from the one and only Philip Patrick. So you got two big terms I need you to get your heads around, because if fiscal consolidation doesn't work, you're going to go eventually, what Philip Patrick says, to financial repression. So we'll make sure that fiscal consolidation, that means dramatic cuts in spending. That means potentially tax increase. They said revenue increases. And hey, we had the revenue increases and tariffs that were not adding to inflation. That's been so well documented, even by the Washington Post, people that are haters, that that was going to be another, $1 trillion in the Treasury to cut the deficit. The plan was at first, just remember, between what Elon was supposed to find but didn't with Doge, because that was fake and gay, but what Russ Vought knows he can do on true cuts that can be backed up, coupled with the economic growth of getting to 3.5%, 4.5%, which will give you higher revenues just because you're growing faster. With fiscal constraint, so you get increased revenues from that. You've got cuts, and you've got tariffs. All three of those are going to get you to a deficit under $1 trillion a year, which is not great but manageable. But this has exploded. But now you've got Scott Bessent and Russ Vought. I've got just to toss it out, guys, and I realize there's not going to be a lot of high-fiving over in the White House, but let me just toss out a random date, midnight on the 30th of September of this year, okay? What is that? Well, it's 5 weeks before a midterm election, national election. Got that, check, okay. This will put, what you do is the House does not approve a CR. We just say, nah, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is the old government going to run out of money at midnight, and guess what? It's going to shut down, and we're going to have a national conversation. We're going to put the DSA on notice. Well, tell me what your plan is. Their plan is to bankrupt the country as quickly as possible, to cause a crisis that then the Marxist jihadists step in like the Bolsheviks stepped in. Their plan's very simple. This is why Democrats, this is why Russ Vought went up last year, and at the beginning of this year with $5 billion here, $10 billion there, these rescissions that are fully in the Constitution, the President of the United States could do in his true Article 2 powers as the chief executive officer of the United States government. How many got through? I don't think any got through. None. The Senate that's got Tom Cotton losing in Arkansas when he won by 33 points 6 years ago, losing in Arkansas by this poll that came out this morning, rejected it. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play more Scott and less Steve. Let's go ahead back to Bessent this morning on CNBC, and I will jump in at appropriate parts for commentary and observations. Let's go and let it rip.
GDP, we actually had a fiscal consolidation for the calendar year 2025. We were at about 5.7% of GDP, and one of the things that's temporary here that's influencing the deficit has been these tariff refunds, and we won't have to do that again. And the Ambassador Greer, through the 301 process, is re-implementing the same level of tariffs, and I would expect that our 2026 tariff income is going to be roughly what it was in 25, and we're going to be able to keep that in terms of the budget consolidation. The other big item in the budget that we're seeing is the hit that we're taking from to revenues for the immediate expensing of factories and of equipment and farm structures. And I think that if people sit back and think that's not government spending, that is actually an investment in the future, and we're increasing the tax base, and that's how. That is what measures the wealth of a nation, is the ability to increase after-tax return on capital. So we're pulling back think of it as pulling back the slingshot here. We have a lot of potential energy that will turn into kinetic energy during this year, next year, as these factories come online.
So do you think we've seen peak deficit during this administration?
I think a very, very good chance we have. That we are going to be laser focused, as I said, OMB Director Vought, myself, the President, that combined with the Vice President's Fraud Task Force, where I think we could save several $100 billion.
Yeah. I mean, because the funding needs, I think, are daunting to a lot of folks. The dependence on foreign bondholders, for instance, we saw the intervention in the Japanese yen, and that's erased a lot of the progress there. And so there are kind of all these worries at once about what's going to happen ultimately with these holders of treasuries.
Again, people have bad information. I have asymmetric information. So, I think that the market should think, well, why would we have joined the Japanese in the intervention at this time? Do we know something the market doesn't know? That in terms of being willing to do what I would call a Treasury twist here, in terms of the bond market, what do I know that the market doesn't know? So, I think the market's probably gotten a little ahead of itself. A lot of people, not much to do in August.
Does it tie Kevin Warsh's hand, your newly instated Fed chairman, who signaled...
Why would it do that?
Well, just if he does need to raise interest rates because inflation is above target, or trim the balance sheet, as he said, that would work against what you guys are trying to do here with long-term rates. I think that the Treasury and the Fed would work together if there was any change in the balance sheet, and we would adjust to any kind of runoff that they're doing. Got it. And what about on rates? What if they have to raise interest rates? Wouldn't that be problematic?
That has nothing to do with the decision that I announced this week on the buybacks.
Okay, but inflation, you mentioned oil and Iran, and I do wonder how much, it's hard to fight it. Right now we have Brent back to 94, and that's putting pressure.
That's a report that's kind of flailing. Well, what about... That really didn't have anything to do with it. Next, flailing. We'll go back to that in a second. Remember, always and everywhere, no matter how much you're on top of this and talking about it and want to take change and make fundamental change, if the emergency slips into a crisis, you're going to get the blame. This is my whole point about to Russ and to Scott and everybody, is that look at the left-wing media. The Democratic Socialist Party and the Working Family Party together, they believe in unlimited spending, and they want to increase taxes on the wealthy, et cetera. And that comes to, I do believe you got to be very smart about how we get more revenue. And I'm a big believer that we have to make capitalist of everybody in this country. And one of the ways is we have to do that is a very smart allocation of equity capital that is only going to marginally drive additional revenues to the $5.5 trillion we've got. So even if you added another $500 billion, which the entire corporate tax, all corporate taxes today are under $500 billion. I think there's $490 billion. It's down from the high of the year before, and Scott talked about that. In the big beautiful bill, the expensing of capital equipment immediately to get people incentivized to not have to pay taxes, put capital equipment in to bring back, guess what, high-value manufacturing jobs back to the United States. You're going to get blamed. President Trump, he says, hey, I don't want to be the Hoover. And I know Scott Bessent and Russ Vought are two of the smartest guys, toughest guys out there. You see how the left-wing media, we got lectured you got lectured by Morning Joe. Joe Scarborough lectured you on $40 trillion and $2 trillion deficit. And up until Bill Clinton, it was only $1 trillion. So what's happened? All are there pushing a big tax and spend agenda. Increased taxes, slower economic growth, big spending. Now with the interest payments, slower economic growth. They've never cared for this at all. The Guardian's headline this morning, debt hits $40 trillion. Democrats outraged. So the entire media and all, Stephanie Rule, all of them piling in over at MSNBC, piling on, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street, piling on. Then, hey, you want to pile on, we'll give you some dramatic and direct action. The forcing function is going to come. I realize I'm getting blowback on this already. You can't mention that. Steve, please don't mention that. Don't get the War and Posse all worked up on this. We have to have a CR. And we'll deal with it in December. Before we do an omnibus, we'll deal with it in December. Okay, guys, you're now in charge of the Fiscal Consolidation Project. You've been deputized. We got two of the best. Give me a solution. We're here. War and Posse's here. We're ready to go fix bayonets. We got your back. You said press conference on Monday for economic warfare against the Persians. In 2 weeks, you're going to have at least a start of a plan on fiscal consolidation. We're here for you in dramatic action, in a sense of urgency, because we are burning daylight.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, folks, the War Room got economic warfare, fiscal consolidation, and financial repression all in one day. Wow. We're going to get back to Scott's. We're going to go through the tape, make sure that we don't have to have the poor interviewer flailing anymore. We're going to go back to the tape and do a couple more cuts. We're going to talk about this. But I think one thing I would recommend to everybody, get a relationship with Philip Patrick and the team over at Birch Gold. Easiest way to do it, take your phone out, Bannon, Bannon at 989898. And that gets you all the guides, all the free information, no obligation on this information, totally free. And so make sure you check it out. And then talk to Philip Patrick and the team. The key thing is to get to Philip Patrick and the team and do it today. Because the Birch Gold guys will talk to you about gold as a hedge in times of financial instability. Also, the Tax Network USA, understand the October 15th extension's coming up. You can't delay it any more than that. Bessent, his other hat he wears, is overseeing the IRS. They are under a mandate. When he said fiscal consolidation, he said two things: spending cuts and revenue enhancements. Make sure you're not part of that revenue enhancement unless you absolutely owe it. The only way you can find out, 866-513-5516. Tax Network USA, that's a hotline. For $49, you give them permission. They'll pull your file of what you've put in for the extension, and they will go and talk to you about they'll give you a snapshot of all that for $49. That's a one-time good deal. 866-513-5516. Okay, I'm going to pivot for a second. We're going to get back to some of the tape of Scott and make sure we go through this in quite a bit of detail. Kimberly Fletcher. Kimberly, the left, MSNBC did a big article about, oh my God, Bannon's calling it a Marxist jihadist revolution. Everybody else is picking up and talking about it. It is a Marxist jihadist revolution in this country. The center of gravity on the jihadist side is down in the jewel of the crown, the great state of Texas. Your Moms for America. You've been in this fight with us from the very beginning. Talk to us. Are we making progress? I want to hear from some of the frontline leaders of troops. Are we winning on this, ma'am?
Winning. We're making progress. And I'll tell you how the big progress that we're making is we're able to reach out to moms. And we are a part of the Ban Sharia network, which is absolutely incredible. And they have put together some remarkable videos that very cost effective to allow us to be able to get the messaging out to moms. And we have moms and teachers who are reaching out to us all the time and saying, listen, this is happening in our classroom. They were passing out hijabs in a high school in Texas. They're passing out Qurans. They're talking about religious exemptions and religious holidays that are specifically related to that religion. And yet at the same time, you're not allowed to talk about anything that the founding fathers said about God or faith or Christianity. So it is happening in our schools, and they're putting it there because they want a future that they're creating based on what they put in the hearts and minds of our children. So this has been a battle for quite some time. I will say that there are some major wins, and that is that the general public, largely because moms are upset about this, are starting to realize that this isn't about freedom of religion. And that's the first thing that, moms or general public will say is, well, after COVID especially, they don't want their church shut down. They don't want their pastor muzzled. That's not what this is. If you want to be a practicing Muslim, you're perfectly within your right and your privilege as an American citizen. But that's not what this is. This is convert or die. And they are using our own constitution and our own government structure to come in and take positions to destroy and dismantle everything that our nation is founded on. This is an invasion of our country, and we have to be very aware that there is a difference between the religious side and the warrior side, where they're coming in and infiltrating every aspect of our society.
Look, one of the reasons we've stayed very close to Moms for America and you and other parents' rights groups is I tell folks that they're the best early warning system, like an early warning radar of at street level, what exactly the issues facing American families and American citizens, because the moms of America, the moms in this country, are essentially the chief operating officer of the American family. So when you talk to folks who are in Moms for America at the deck plate level, the feedback you get, let's get some granularity. The feedback you get from moms is what about this issue of Sharia law and this, quite frankly, very obvious invasion of our country. What do you hear at a granular level about this, ma'am?
Very, very concerned about the takeover of communities, that the amount of mosques that are being started, the property that's being bought and developed, and that they're creating their own little communities that is changing the whole entire structure and government culture of those communities. I mean, Dallas, Texas alone has over 300 mosques, and they're continuously adding them. McKinney, Texas is battling this right now with a mosque coming in. And I know it's tricky because people are like, well, a mosque is a church. Well, maybe, but it's also a place for the Muslim Brotherhood to fund all of their terrorist activities. And when I say terrorist activities, we need to remember that this is just violence. So the violence that is happening in our country, the attacks against freedom in our schools and our colleges, the attacks against ICE. I mean, all of those things were funded by the globalist communists and the Islamist jihadists. And the ironic thing is that they're all working together. They're completely diametrically opposed to each other, but they're working together now because eventually they'll eat each other. But until then, they have to destroy us. They have to dismantle America. The Quran and the Islamic jihadist religion and aspects of it is completely Sharia law, completely incompatible with the Constitution. So when we are able to explain that to moms, and the first thing they say is, we want to ban Sharia law. Sharia law should not be allowed, and they should not be allowed to own property for the purpose of promoting Sharia law. So it is taking root, especially in Texas, but because of what's happening in Texas, because of what's been happening in Dearborn, Michigan, because of what's been happening in Cincinnati, moms are paying attention, and they're getting their whole family and their communities involved in first informing, educating, and then getting them empowered and mobilized to stand against it.
What kind of frustration, or what are their observation? As much pressure as the moms in America have on themselves today, with how it is to put food on the table, or pay for the medical insurance, or just live a normal life and provide for your kids and make sure that they have the formation they need to go forward as citizens in this republic. Given all the pressure, then you have this on top of them. What do you hear from them about, like, places in McKinney where you have a number of conservatives and particularly business, the kind of corporate Republicans or Chamber of Commerce Republicans saying, hey, their money's green and we're all about economic development and economic growth. What response do you hear from the moms about that, where many people that should be on our side of the football are actually making money off this and saying, or turning a blind eye to the issues of Sharia to say, look, their checks cash, and that's what I care about, ma'am?
Well, you're right about moms having the pulse on the culture. And I can tell you that there's a lot of money being made on our children, stealing the hearts and minds of our children, confusing them that they are not who they are, that they need to change their body. I mean, there's just a lot of money out there that's being used to dismantle this country through our children. And that is the playbook from the Marxists, Mao, Hitler, Stalin. They all used the same thing. Go to the children and shape your future. So that's the thing that moms are trying to focus on, is the heart of who we are. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because the big thing that moms are starting to realize now is, one, they don't understand what America's about. If you're under 60 years old, you have no idea what America's about or why it's worth fighting for, unless you went to Hillsdale College or you had a good mama. And we need to get that story out there, because while we're fighting against something, that's short, that's frenzies. You get tired and exhausted, and a lot of times we throw our hands up in the air. So we need to fight for something, and that is something that John Vought and I realized early this year, with this being our 250th anniversary. If we want to be able to fight against things, then the American people need to understand what it is that we have to fight for, so that we know what we don't want because of what we do have. And so John Vought and I, our goal was to create something that would re-energize this love of country and revive a spirit of patriotism. And so he and I spent the last several months writing and producing a live stage multimedia stage production called Our American Story. And it's 250 years of America's history, the great moments of history, in 95 minutes, with music and story, because there's nothing that touches a heart more than that. So we are launching actually in Texas, because of what's happening in Texas. In Dallas, we are holding a red carpet premiere September 17th on Constitution Day, to be able to stand against everything that's coming against Texas, because there is an enormous amount of money that's going into Texas from the globalists, the jihadists, the communists, to take Texas. And I found the whole entire Democrat Party playbook in Harris County, Texas in 2009. And at the very top, it said Texas 2020, because the whole entire goal was to take Texas. But for the grace of God and Donald Trump, they would have. So we are that close to losing Texas. And Steve, if we lose Texas, we lose America. There's nothing, no election, no presidential election, nothing that's happening in Congress, no battle against the things that we're fighting against in our homes, in our communities, in our states. It's going to matter if we lose Texas.
We moved the show down there for 3 months for the Prop 10, and we're going to move the show back down there as we get around the convention or the rally, whatever's taking place early September. We're going to be there, so we will be there. I want to go back through this quickly. Got a couple minutes, because John Voight's the best. You and John Vought did what? And it's going to premiere on September 17th. How can people participate? What is it exactly?
Yeah, so it's a live multimedia stage production. Kelsey Grammer, Gary Sinise, Kirk Cameron, John Vought all have specially produced video presentations within it. It's really the story of America. And it starts with Mayflower, and it goes through the greatest generation. And the last epic is our generation. That the greatest generation isn't behind us, it's before us. And it's what we leave, pass on, and share with our children that's going to determine whether or not we have another 250 years. So the red carpet premiere is is in Dallas, Texas at South Fork Ranch, where Dallas was filmed. And it is September 17th, Constitution Day. And if you want to learn more, the direct website is ouramericanstory.com/premiere. ouramericanstory.com/premiere.
After the premiere, is this going to be available to go around the country? Is Moms for America going to think about that after the premiere?
Yep, that was the goal all along. So we've got two things going on. One is the script, and all the elements can be licensed to script at no charge to schools, communities across the country where they can perform it themselves. We are also at this event, we're going to be video recording it for live television so that we can put it online at Netflix or something like that where people can see it. And we're also taking it on the road through the US 250 tour. That's us250tour.com. So where people can see it in their own communities. And we have a whole entire educational program that goes into the schools, a shorter version of the production with educational materials and curriculum that go along with it that tell specific points about America's history and why it's so great.
Hang on. I'm gonna hold you through the break. I want everybody to go to you give the coordinates again. I want everybody to immerse themselves in this. Kimberly Fletcher, Moms for America, next.
We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, a couple things. Bansharia.com. Go there for everything Kimberly talked about, and Frank Gaffney and Major Smith. Everybody, Bansharia.com. Go check it out. Check it out today. Also, we had Jeff Stein on the other day, the financial reporter, talking about the change of the vibe shift, as he called it, in the Bay Area with the Frontier Labs, about the containment issues and the acceleration issues. He says accelerationists are becoming preppers. Remember on the show, he goes, "Hey, Steve, do you or your audience know what a prepper is?" I go, "Yeah, I think we might have heard that term." My Pace is probably being one of the oldest sponsors of the show. Preparewithbannon.com. They've got a special right now. Preparewithbannon.com. Go there. Special landing pages for the War Room Posse. Take the preparedness challenge for your chance to win a 1-week emergency food bundle for a family of 4, a $600 value, absolutely free. So go check it out. Preparewithbannon.com. They got information about everything else. As the accelerationists in the Bay Area become preppers, maybe it's time for the preppers to kind of take leadership in the country, because you have been the people with common sense. Preparewithbannon.com. Check it out. Also, this is very important, is health insurance, particularly with the underwriting of Obamacare going away as people would try to balance the budget. It has impact on people, I think 1/3 or 40%. There's another alternative, America's Health Share. Now go to freedomforhealth.com freedomforhealthcare.org, freedomforhealthcare.org/Bannon. You've got to do your due diligence. They got all the information, but you also have direct access to management to ask your questions. A totally different concept in your health insurance. But if it's appropriate for you, you could get great coverage and maybe even better coverage and save a ton of money. And in today's environment, you need that. freedomforhealth.org/Bannon. Now, they throw in 30 days free if you join, but that's not the reason for doing this. This is a fundamental shift away from traditional health insurance. Check it out today. America's Health Share, freedomforhealth.org. Check it out today. Kimberly, one more time, can you give all the coordinates for everything that you guys are up to? And I want to make sure bansharia.com, totally free. Go there right now. They got these videos, films, information, all of it about the fight all over the country, particularly in Texas. Kimberly, where do people go for all the coordinates you just talked about this great event you're going to have September 17th and beyond in the United States?
Yeah, so it's our 250story.com/premiere is where you can get the direct link for the event. But if you just go to our250story.com, all the information is there on how to license the event, the script free, how to hold it in your own community. We provide the resources and support for you to be able to do that, or how to bring it to your community through the US 250 tour. Our250story.com.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you and all the work you do. Like I said, you're the early warning system for this country, the Moms for America. You guys are on the deck plates and you know what's going on. The chief operating officers of the American family. Ma'am, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
You, sir.
and Moms for America. Kimberly's always on the front line when you got to fight. That's the kind of people you know that that are driving this country forward. What I call patriots and heroes. I'm putting it all out there. Dr. Thayer, the book is on fire. You talk about it's a wake-up call. This has been a 100-year war, and it's going to go on for a while unless we take dramatic action of what you outline in the book. What's the book? Where do people go? And why, given everything that's on people's minds, everything going on, why should they buy it today, read it today, and act upon it today? Sir.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Great to join you. Thank you so much for writing the foreword to it. And it's an honor to follow Kimberly Fletcher. If we're going to defeat communism, as we are, it's women like Kimberly Fletcher, Americans like Kimberly, who are going to do this. No doubt about it. Look, the book is going to tell patriotic Americans what they need to know about communism, why it is the existential threat that President Trump is stating time and again. Secondly, it's going to inform Americans about their identity, about the spirit of 1776, why this is the greatest country in the world, a part of the greatest civilization, Western civilization in the world. And thirdly, it's going to tell you that you need to act in every way that you can, whether that's locally, whether that's getting involved in politics. We need to realize, of course, elections matter in 26 and in 28, and they have to be too big to rig because we are entering the last stage of the communist revolution. If they ever get back into power, Steve, you know how quickly they're going to act to ensure that there's never another free and fair election and that the America as a constitutional republic is over. And that's going to be replaced by a communist totalitarian government. And that's not an exaggeration, that's the plan. So we are entering the last stage of their revolution if they ever get back in charge. So the book is available at Amazon, and it's doing very well, and at Barnes & Noble, wherever folks buy books. And folks can reach me at Brad Thayer on X and Bradley Thayer at Getter and Truth. Thank you, Steve.
Do you have DMs on both Getter and Truth? Do you have a way people can get to you privately?
Yes. Yeah. And Steve, there's also
Yep. Go ahead.
Well, there's also a list of books to read, like Whitaker Chambers' Witness,
Yes.
so folks can get much deeper into this.
Yes, people do it. I also don't want people to get access. So where do they go for access directly to you? Because I've already gotten a bunch of requests that people want to talk to you. So where do they go?
Brad Thayer on X or Getter or Truth. Folks can DM me there.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Great work on the book. Let's get it and buy it. The Marxist Jihadist Revolution. MSNBC doesn't like it. I haven't had a chance to go through the article. Did a big article on you, the War and Posse. They were not happy. They're not happy with you. They're very unhappy. MSNBC is very unhappy with you. To hell with them. If they're not happy, then we know we're over the target, right? Stick around. Next hour is going to be explosive with Ben Harnwell. I'm back at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. I'm going to get more into the whole Scott Bessent of all. A couple of things for your planning. Bessent's giving a press conference on Monday about economic warfare. We'll get you totally up to speed on what that and why Mark Tel Aviv Levin and others are throwing their toys out of the pram. You're not going to get a chance to draft your sons and daughters to fight the wars of Greater Israel. That's not going to happen. The kinetic part of this is downgraded dramatically right now. Scott Bessent takes over and goes to work on economic warfare to bring the Persians to their knees. As only Scott Bessent can. Stick around. Next, War Room continues. I'll see you back here at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow morning. We'll go through more of Scott Bessent.